So thank you for having me. I am Sharon Stevens. I do work with Zoe Ministries. I work very closely with Harrison's mom, Yolanda Slayball. And so we like to travel. We would love to get into schools. We have gotten into some schools to do this presentation. But in the meantime, while we're trying to get into more public schools, we are going around to youth groups. Wherever we can find youth, that's where we're speaking. And this is a heavy topic. It is broken into 3 parts, which is fantastic, okay? And so if you have any questions as we go, we are going to have some knowledge checks and some activities, as you see on your papers, just to help you grasp the information a little bit more. You know, definitely some terms are going to come up. We're not holding back here because this is real stuff. It's more prevalent than I think most people know. And a couple of the questions that I heard in advance, if you feel like this doesn't touch those questions, ask me those again at the end, and I'll try to touch on those, because this is a specifically designed curriculum for youth. It's not an awareness presentation per se, which would answer some of your questions that you asked, but it is a presentation, a curriculum which engulfs many topics that include sex trafficking, but they all can lead to sex trafficking, okay? So it is for your protection, and I do this because I love youth. I love teenagers. And I just think that you are in a culture, you're in a world, even if you're homeschooled, and you've been, you know, away from some of the everyday stuff that some of the kids in schools deal with, it's still there. It's still there. You're still having to see it and hear it, and you know a lot more than your parents know. That I do know, okay? So thank you to the parents that are here and listening to this, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. So our first lesson deals with predators. Who can tell me what a predator is? What would be your definition of a predator? Come on now, y'all are gonna have to talk to me tonight. You're gonna have to. Yes?
An animal that preys on other animals.
Okay. That's good. That's a good definition. And it is no different with people, okay? So if you have a predator that's a human being, it's someone that's preying on you for some particular reason. And we're going to talk about some of those reasons tonight. And I tend to go off script, so you'll just have to, you know, bear with me as I skip over slides. But basically, you know, this first one just asks, who's writing your story? You know, each of you, even though you're friends, you're in the same youth group, you might live in the same town, you each have your own path. You each have your own story, and who's writing that, okay? And I'm hoping that by the end of this, you are the one writing it, and you're not letting other people dictate your own story. It should be between you and God with your parents' guidance, okay? That is how that should work. It shouldn't be other people dictating who you are and what you think about yourself. So you've answered the questions, right? You answered those first 3 questions, okay? So one of the things that we want to get across to you is that you are priceless, okay? Your lives matter. You are priceless. As an individual, your life is destined to make an amazing impact, okay, on other people in the world. And it doesn't have to be right here in Greenwood. It can be across the world. Anybody you come in contact with, your life matters. Your impact matters. So you deserve to be successful. You deserve to be happy, all right? So I would like for you to take just a moment, look at your next page there, and fill out 3 goals, your top 3 goals you would like to achieve in the next 5 years. Now, there's a big wide spread here of seniors. You would have completely different goals probably than a 6th grader. But whatever your goals are for your life, the next 5 years, just write them down on that paper. Okay, so if I have 3 people that are willing to share one of your goals, how many seniors do we have? Couple? Okay. So one of the seniors, share a goal with me, please. I know you all have goals. Yes, Megan. To finish school. That's a great goal. Okay, great goal. How about, do we have anybody in middle school here? One middle schooler? Couple, two, three? Okay. So one of you share a goal with me, please. Yeah. To have a stronger relationship with God. That's an awesome goal. Love that. Okay. Anybody else want to share a goal? This is a free-for-all. Any age. Yes.
Find what I'm passionate about.
Okay. Yeah. Good. To find what you're passionate about. You want to share one? To learn to drive. Yeah. How old are you? 13. Okay. Yeah. You'll be perfect at it. All right. Good goals. Okay. So it's always good to have some goals before you. And it's important because if you are writing your story, you and God are working that out. He's going to give you some steps to take, okay? And sometimes God's goals for you are different than your goals, okay? But he's going to let you know that. He's going to direct you in that way. All right, pay attention to this video right here as closely as you can.
This is an awareness test. How many times did the team in white pass the ball? If you answered 13 passes, you are correct. But did you see the moonwalking gorilla?
Okay, who saw the gorilla the first time? Really did? Did you really? As he was exiting out? Yeah, I totally missed him the first time I saw this. So why am I showing you this? This is awareness. This is basically to show you that if we are not looking for something, it can be right in front of our faces as big as that gorilla, and we don't see it, okay? So if our focus is on something else, that's all we're looking at. And we have to be able to spot what a predator is, who a predator is, and how they work, okay? All right, it doesn't mean you're stupid if you didn't see the gorilla. It just means you weren't focused on that. So the objectives for today, very quickly, is to identify what makes you vulnerable, okay? As a teen, as an individual, what makes you vulnerable for predators, to understand the tactics of predators, how they work, and to determine steps to avoid or stop abuse and exploitation. We're going to talk about abuse. We're going to talk about exploitation. And I should start out by saying, if, I never know people's backgrounds. I never know your situation. So if there's anything in this presentation that upsets you, feel free to step out, see one of your youth leaders, definitely, okay? Do not feel like you have to sit there and be triggered and stay upset, okay? All right, moving on. All of these faces that you see, these are child actors, okay? These are youth actors and actresses. And you will see some of them throughout this presentation and all of them throughout all three presentations. And they are representing true stories that have happened to other youth in our country. All right, abuse. Abuse is very clearly a misusing of someone to wrongfully meet your own needs. So you misuse someone else for something you want, all right? That's what abuse is. And exploitation is taking that abuse and making a profit off of it, okay? So some sort of profit from the abuse that you are inflicting. That is what exploitation is. And in today's world, we hear a lot about human trafficking. Okay, that's kind of one of the big topics right now. So we're going to talk a little about human trafficking today. We're going to talk about sexual abuse today. Now, abuse and exploitation both can cause anger. If you've been abused or you've been exploited, it causes you to start to feel angry inside. It can cause fear. It can cause depression. These are some of the warning signs that you asked about earlier. How do you spot this? Some of these things happen with people that are being abused, and it doesn't have to be sexual abuse. It can be any type of abuse, or if they're being exploited. Depression, toxic shame, okay, which can then cause you to feel stuck. So if you see that little cycle there, okay, that little first one says it makes you feel powerless. So when somebody abuses you, it kind of strips your power from you. You feel like you're coming under their power, and it makes you feel powerless, which then makes you feel weak, which then makes you not like yourself. It's this whole cycle that goes on. It makes you not like yourself. You develop this sort of self-hatred, and then it kind of takes you into a place of isolation, all right? And you start to withdraw, all right? You start to not want to be part of things that other people are a part of as much. That's called the shame cycle. If you hear me talk about that later, that's what that is. It's the shame cycle, and it goes over and over and over again. And if you're sitting there thinking, well, this just doesn't apply to me, I guarantee you it applies to somebody you know, somewhere, or someone you will meet, because there is a lot of abuse going on in the world today. So, what do we think in a world of abuse like this? What is the key to survival? That is knowing who your enemy is, okay? So if you play sports, you have an opponent. You know, I used to coach basketball. You have to scout out your opponent. You have to know their tactics. You have to know how they work if you want to beat them, right? So it's no different here. You have to know who your enemy is. You have to know who the predators are. And you have to be able to identify when they're trying to approach you, because they will try to approach you. May I just say this right now? This isn't part of this particular presentation, but trafficking is not, most of the time, somebody getting kidnapped in a van and being taken somewhere. That is a myth. It's just a myth, okay? I'm not saying it never happens, but the fact that we say that that's all trafficking is a myth, okay? Most of the time, that is not how it happens. So that's why I'm here. I just want to let you know how this really looks. A predator, any predator, all right, 93% of the time is somebody you already know. They develop relationship with you. That's their first tactic, okay? They're 93% somebody you know. It can be somebody in your church. It can be somebody at your school. It can be somebody in your own home. It can be anybody that you already know. You don't have to know them well, but you know them, okay? That's 93% of the time. 30 to 40% of predators are other teenagers. We have teenagers trafficking teenagers in school. 30% of predators are family members. Familial trafficking is very much on the rise. So, how do you identify a predator? It is definitely not how they look, okay? You cannot look at somebody and go, oh yeah, he's a predator, okay? Most people will look at somebody. I ask kids all the time, what would you say a predator looks like? And one girl said, he's a white man with greasy hair standing in the corner. That's a predator. I'm like, yeah, that's not how you're going to identify a predator, okay? You can't identify predators by what they look like. You have to understand how they work, the words they speak to you, okay? You need to know how they hunt. So, number one, there's 3 different tactics here. Number one is they hide in plain sight, which means you can't identify them by what they look like, okay? They are going to blend in. They're going to come in looking like your dad, looking like your mom, all right? Looking like one of you. They're not going to dress up. And by the way, if I mention traffickers and pimps, they're one and the same. All pimps are traffickers. Not all traffickers are pimps, okay? But all pimps are traffickers. So they're one and the same. So if somebody comes walking in here dressed like a pimp, what would you say? What does a pimp look like? Tell me, y'all know what a pimp looks like. What's your stereotypical thought of what a pimp might look like? Do you know what a pimp is? Okay, well, let's start there, okay? So a pimp is somebody that sells girls, most of the time, or boys, for sex. They are like the boss over the prostitutes. They are the boss over those who are being sold. So if you see prostitutes on the streets, they almost always have a pimp, okay? And they claim that that pimp, he's the one, he keeps them safe. But he doesn't. But that's the mindset. So that's what a pimp is, okay? And oftentimes, if people think they're dressed up, they wear a lot of bling, they have fuzzy hats, they might wear bright colors, okay? No one's going to walk into your place looking like that. Let me just share a quick story with you because it's a powerful one. I was at a conference a couple of years ago, and a survivor, a trafficking survivor, a lady that had been trafficked as a teenager, was leading the workshop there. And she was explaining her story, and she said, you know, I came from a 2-parent, very good Christian home. And we went to church all the time. And she said, we had this couple that moved into our community, and they got involved in the church. Everybody loved them. They started going to dinner, people's places, joined Bible study, and for a year, you know, that's how it was. Everybody loved them. And then they started to ask to do things with some of the youth. They wanted to get involved with the youth, okay? A lot of people do that, no problem, right? And so they said, you know, can we take, so you 4 girls, can I take you 4? Can I take you bowling today? Can we go bowling? Ask your parents. Parents was like, yeah, sure, we know them, you know, go ahead. Went bowling, came back, no problem. Had a great time. Month or 2 later, ask your parents if we can go like to the Cape May Zoo, you know, just kind of a little day trip across the ferry there. Parents are like, okay, yeah, go ahead. We trust them. Took them, no problem. Came back, no issues. A couple more times did that, made it a little longer each time. And then the guy started saying, ask your parents if we can go to New York for the weekend. And so this particular lady, as a teen, she asked her mom. Her mom's like, absolutely not. You are not going to New York City with these people. No way. They're like, Mom, you know this person. They've been in our church. They're part of our church family. No way you're not going. Multiple times asked. He kept saying, ask your mom again, ask your mom again, ask your mom again. And so finally, something happened in the family. There was a tragedy with one of the relatives. At that very time, he went to that girl and he said, ask your mom right now. And she's like, okay. And she goes and asks her mom, and her mom's so distraught with what's going on in the family that she was just like, just please stop asking me the question, just go. Just go. And so 4 of them, they took 4 of the girls in New York City, trafficked those girls to 20 different men that weekend. That shame cycle started to kick in. They came back, they never told their parents because number 1, he threatened them. Number 2, he shamed them, okay? They felt like it was their fault, and they were stuck in that life, and they had to keep going and being trafficked for years after that until they could finally get out. And so why do I tell you that? I tell you that because, not so you can be fearful of everyone, but because you have to know how they hunt, and they're very, very patient most of the time. So remember I said for a year they just became part of the church family. That's what they did. And then they started to just slowly work their way in. Okay? So just keep that in mind. So we're hiding in plain sight. That's our first trap. They just.
You know that I snuck out of the house over 20 times to meet a man that I thought loved me? It turns out he didn't love me at all. And he forced me to do sexual things with him that I didn't want to do. When I tried to tell him no, he threatened to come after Dad and my brother.
Okay. So how do you think he lured her? What did he do to kind of lure her in? Talk to me now. What did he tell her? Yeah. Yeah. He told her that he loved her, okay? I don't know too many girls that aren't looking for love. I don't know too many boys that aren't looking for love. I don't know too many human beings that don't want to be loved, okay? We're all looking for that. And if something is missing, we feel like we have a void, we're looking for it all the much more, okay? And if an older boy starts talking to a younger girl, then that's very flattering, often. And so that's what he did. Started expressing his interest in her. She was very flattered. She loved it that he wanted to be her boyfriend. She loved that. He also told her he loved her. And did he really? Oh, no, of course not. He was pretending, okay? So that's how he lured her, but how did he keep her trapped? Because once they lure you, then they trap you. How did he keep her trapped? Did he tie her up? Did he handcuff her? What did it say? What did she say? Sorry, what?
She was afraid they would hurt.
Yes. Yeah. There's three things up there. She was afraid of losing him. She was afraid that he would hurt her family because he said he would, okay? And she was afraid of how her parents would react. Now, the second tactic is they start to become your friend. Remember the couple in the church, okay? So they blend in, they come in, they start to become your friend. They start to pretend like they're interested in everything you're interested in, all right? They meet you right where you are. So if you're struggling with your parents and you voice that, then they're going to say, oh, yeah, oh, my goodness, yes. My parents are the worst, okay? And then you're going to be like, oh, they get it. They get what I'm saying. They know exactly what to say. They listen for your weakness, and they try to fill it.
Did you know I agreed to meet a boy on Facebook who turned out to be a man paying me for sex? He said he loved me. I just needed someone to love me.
So again, there we are, somebody looking for love, right? It always boils down to that. Someone looking for something, attention, love, someone to understand them. So this was a freshman girl, and she came really close to being a victim of child sex trafficking, all right? Do you think when she started talking to this person that she knew he was a predator? Of course not. No, you're not going to look at someone going, oh, I think that's a predator, let me go talk to him, okay? So let's listen to the whole story here. Maybe.
Jessie is a bright but shy 13-year-old girl. She has faced many challenges in her short life. Her parents are divorced, and her father has been in prison most of her life. Things haven't been going well with her mom for a while now. After another frustrating quarrel, Jessie retreats to her safe place where she can share her struggles. She logs onto her Facebook page and begins to vent. She reveals the intimate details of her situation. She also makes known her anxiety of starting her freshman year at a big high school. Alexander friend requests Jessie. She lights up as she reads, "Hi Jess, my name is Alexander. Sorry to hear about the stuff you're going through. My parents are the worst, so I can totally relate. I also wanted to let you know that I go to the same school you'll be at. I'm a senior and play football. I don't know what you're worried about because you're super pretty and I bet you'll have lots of friends." Her worries and anxieties melt away as she and her new friend and confidant develop a relationship over the summer. She's hopeful they will be able to meet in person soon. The ping of a message sends her chills as Alexander asks her to meet. Things have been so wonderful. He has told her how attracted he is to her, and he longs to hold her. As they make their plans, Alex says he wants to have sex with her. She's a little hesitant at first, but he explains how strong his feelings are for her, and it would mean so much to him that he would even pay her. She agrees. Jessie tells her mom she's going to hang out with some friends and heads out to meet Alexander. Her mom decided to check in on her friends by reviewing her Facebook page. Terror strikes her heart as she reads through the endless messages of this 18-year-old young man offering her little girl money for sex. A desperate call to 911. Mom hopes law enforcement will intercede and prevent this tragedy. Thankfully, the time and location were in the text, so she was able to give their location. The police arrived in time to arrest a 24-year-old sex offender who had tricked an innocent, vulnerable girl into believing he was her boyfriend. After a little investigating, law enforcement found his real Facebook page and discovered a disturbing post. "I see my girls like a buffet. I just have to decide which one I'm going to devour first."
Okay, again, these stories are true, and they're very common. So, you might be thinking, that's never going to happen to me. I wouldn't be that stupid. I wouldn't do that. So you just have to kind of put yourself in her shoes the best you can, a freshman girl, coming in scared, wanting to know somebody, being afraid of starting school or any new situation that she might be going into. Her dad's not there in her life. She's missing that part of her life. She argues with her mom a lot, feels like her mom's controlling, her. And maybe some of you have felt that way, about your parents at some point. And I know my kids certainly did at times. And, so she was just insecure about her looks. Young ladies, I know that sometimes you can look in the mirror and the very first thing you go is, ugh, I do not like the way I look today. You just put so much pressure on yourselves in the way you think you're supposed to look. And so God has made you to be beautiful, and every single one I'm looking at right now, you are beautiful. And you do not have to fit into the mold of anything that you see on TV or in magazines or anywhere else for that matter. Or according to anyone else, really. So this girl posts her likes and dislikes, and then this guy takes advantage, okay? How was he successful at manipulating her? Well, basically he said, I'm going to be your friend. It's going to be okay. I understand your situation with your parents. Do you understand what I'm doing? What he's doing, he's filling the need, okay? He's listening to her, and he's filling the need. He's lying, but he's still filling the need, and she doesn't know that he's lying. All right, so predators listen to what's important to you. That's what they do. Okay, so look at your activity sheet here, okay? First of all, I have two things that I want you to do. The activity 2 there, it says select what you can relate to, okay? So if you have a situation where one of your parents is absent from your life, you don't ever get to see them, be around them, just circle the things that relate to you in that second activity, okay? And then in the third activity, go ahead and do that. Rank each of the following in order of what is most important to you. So if knowing you are loved is important, really important, circle a 1. If it's not that important, circle a 4. And keep on going there. Okay, so as you're working on that or finishing that up, I'm not going to ask you what your situation is in activity 2. That's not my business, and it's not anybody else's really. But this is for you to be self-aware, okay? That some of these things, if you circled, make you a little more vulnerable, okay? Because that means there's something missing, all right? Something's missing there, and you're going to look for something to fill it, okay? And we don't want you to look for the wrong thing to fill it. So activity 3, ranking each one, knowing you are loved. How important was that to you? Relationships. And relationships doesn't have to be boyfriend, girlfriend, okay? Don't think every time you hear the word relationship that it means boyfriend, girlfriend, or it doesn't. We'll talk about that in the third session. But how important are they to you? How important is it for you to be on social media or to be gaming, all right? If you're a gamer. What's your self-image? Is that really important to you? So these are for you to think about you. You have to get to know, you can't just float through life. You have to get to know who you are, okay? And what your situation is so that you can then protect yourself more against somebody approaching you, all right? It's really important for you to be in touch with yourself and what your needs are. All right, so everyone does have different priorities, like I said, and the person next to you might not have put the same thing as you, and that's okay, all right? You realize it's not something that you can copy off of somebody else because you are your own person. God's created you. God's created you to be you, all right? The third tactic. So remember, they're blending in, okay? They blend in, they befriend you. Then after they get you kind of hooked, then the manipulation starts, all right? That's when they start to manipulate you. And manipulation, I just consider it trickery. They'd start to trick you. They start to fool you and trick you into doing things that you probably wouldn't have done if they hadn't asked you to. But because they asked you to and they've been really kind to you and you think you love them, you're a little more likely to say, okay, all right, even though you're not quite sure you should be doing it. So to manipulate someone is to control or influence a person cleverly or unfairly, all right? And it is hard to tell when you're being manipulated most of the time. It's hard to spot most of the time. One of the really good things that I'm hoping to develop more in teens is a good self-confidence. Not cockiness, but a self-confidence in who God created you to be. If you're self-confident and you know that who you are is okay, more than okay, you are not going to need the stuff that some of these people try to offer you. You won't need it. You won't want it, okay? Because you'll be already okay with who you are. All right, so the goal of the enemy is to keep you trapped so they can maintain control over you. Remember, after those girls were trafficked in New York City, they were trapped. They were trapped. They had no idea how to get out. They were scared. They were fearful for their lives, their families' lives, and they were just embarrassed. And that is enough to keep a lot of kids trapped, just the embarrassment and the shame. They don't want to tell their parents. And if you notice, most of these videos that I'm playing, I'm talking to their parents. It's because most of them didn't talk to their parents in the first place. They kept it hidden from their parents, all right? So predators use fear, physical harm. They use emotional and mental abuse to strip a person of their own power. It's that whole shame cycle, that powerlessness comes in. And when you feel powerless, you just feel like, okay, it's just not worth fighting anymore. All right. Activity 4, on your sheet, okay? I think that's supposed to say read each phrase, not reach each phrase. Read each phrase and match it with one statement of truth. So, up here, they're not all in order there, I don't think. So someone invites you to sneak out and hook up. Is that a trap? Is that illegal? Is that they're just a creeper? Okay. What do you think? If someone tells you money for sex is love, is that illegal? Is that a trap? Or is that a creeper? Some of these could fit under a couple. And then someone asks you to perform a sex act online. Is that a creeper? Is that illegal? Or is that a trap? So what do you think? Let's start with that last one, because that's probably the easiest one. Someone asks you to perform a sex act online. Which one is it? What is that? They would be a creeper, but that's not the one it is. That's illegal, okay? Someone asks you to do any kind of sex act online, it's illegal. They can't do it. They're not supposed to be asking you to do that. As a minor, under 18 years old, that's automatically a crime, okay? Someone tells you money for sex is love. Is that a trap or is that a creeper? That's a trap, okay? Someone invites you to sneak out and hook up, creeper, all right? So if that's not how a relationship goes. I can't wait to get to that third session where we talk about relationships, okay? Okay. The sexual exploitation that took place in all those kids' lives that we've heard about so far, they definitely had a devastating effect on their lives. Their lives were not the same anymore. Each story definitely had a potential to be child sex trafficking. They escaped it narrowly, most of them, but it had potential. All right, let's go to your first knowledge check there. Go ahead and do that. Abuse. Number 1. Abuse can cause which of the following powerful emotions? So we talked about this. Is it shame, fear, anger, depression, or all the above? What do you think? Yep, all the above, okay? So if somebody has suffered abuse, they most likely will be having all of those feelings, all those dynamics going on. Number 2, how do predators befriend you? Choose one of those answers. What's that? You think all the above? Do you agree? Absolutely. Okay? They trap you in a relationship of lies. They get to know you and act like they care. And they will tell you what you need to hear. All right? And number 3, what is the goal of a predator? Which one is that? That is A. Yep, that's their goal. Their goal is to maintain control over you. All right. Good deal. Okay, so we're going to go into human trafficking real quick. All right? There's 2 kinds of trafficking, labor and sex. At Zoe Ministries, we deal mostly with sex trafficking of minors. Okay? And I could give you staggering statistics about that across this country. But let's look at labor trafficking real quick. So labor trafficking is being forced or tricked into doing work. It is just absolute slavery. That's what it is. Anything you've ever heard about slavery in the past, it's the same thing, okay? It's work without pay or very little pay. They'll say sometimes, oh, you have this debt, you need to pay me off, but somehow the debt never gets paid off. Sometimes they have to work for unlimited hours, really young ages, being confined, unable to leave. You say, does this even happen here? It absolutely does. It happens in the agricultural industry a lot. And it happens at the beach a lot. We have often Eastern European people come in for the summer. They're promised jobs. They get work visas. They come in. And next thing you know, many of them are being trafficked, labor trafficked and sex trafficked. They might still be working. They might have a waitressing job or whatever it is that they're working and doing, but they're all living together. They're all being watched by one person, usually an older person, older man, typically. And then their money's being taken from them. And they can't do a thing about it because their work visas are taken. Okay? So that happens every summer in our area. Child sex trafficking. So where adults have to prove force, fraud, or coercion, okay, in a court of law. Kids don't have to prove any of that. If anybody's asked you to do a sex act of any kind and you're under 18, you are automatically a victim of child sex trafficking. Okay? You do not have to be kidnapped. You do not have to be taken anywhere. This can happen. Things are... Wawa seems to be, Rural Farms seems to be a major hub these days of picking up. Do not go to Wawa and Rural Farms by yourself at night. Do not do it. Okay, girls, when you start driving, boys, when you start driving, don't get your gas at night by yourself. Okay? You get it in the daytime. You go with other people. Child sex trafficking is... so that you do not have to prove force, fraud, or coercion. It's just automatically illegal, and there are estimated to be 1.1 million children worldwide in sex slavery. And may I say to you that the United States we are number 1 in sex buyers. Okay? We lead the pack in people buying people. People. That's an embarrassment. That's an embarrassment. So I need to make this clear. Trafficking is an exchange. Child sex trafficking is an exchange of anything of value for any sex act. So you don't have to actually have sexual intercourse for it to be trafficking. It can be any sex act and anything of value. So I know one young lady who said that she was trafficked by her mother when she was 5. And she was given to another man by her mother, sold to another man, and all her mom asked in return was a Pepsi and a pack of cigarettes. That's what was the valuable thing for her mom at that time. Sometimes it's drugs. Sometimes it can be a meal. Sometimes it can be a place to sleep. Sometimes it can be game tokens if you're gamers. All right? Whatever you think is valuable at that moment, that's what they're going to give you. It doesn't have to be money. They won't give it to you. They'll give it to the person trafficking you. Am I clear about that? Okay? So if you're somewhere and you find yourself in a tough situation, and you're like, I just need a ride home. Like, I got nobody come get me. I just need a ride home. And this guy comes along, you kind of sort of know him. You know him from school or wherever. And he's like, yeah, I'll take you home. Yeah, I'll take you home. And so he gets you close to home, but then he says, you know now what you have to give me? That's trafficking. Okay? That is trafficking. All right. So, why do we even have trafficking? We have trafficking because it is a lucrative business. All right? Traffickers make a lot of money. So go to your activity there. Let's just see what you think about this. It says match each business with the amount you think they made. So just take a guess. Starbucks, McDonald's, Microsoft, and the sex trafficking industry. How much do you think each one of those businesses made? A lot of these are from a couple of years ago. A lot of these statistics, but take a guess. All right, so which one do you think makes the least, 19.6? You think McDonald's? Or Starbucks? You don't think it's either one of the other two? All right, that is McDonald's. Okay? So what do you think, who do you think makes 22.5? Okay, absolutely. Who do you think makes 93.5? All right, what? It's Microsoft, which means that sex trafficking makes the most, beats all those other companies, okay? They bring in $100 billion a year, worldwide. It is only second to drugs, and most of the time trafficking and drugs go hand in hand. So, if we think about that, what is the highest grossing product? It's not coffee, it's not a Big Mac, it's you. It's me. It's people. We are the highest grossing product, okay? If I'm selling weapons, I can sell a gun one time, and that's it. If I'm selling you, I'm selling you over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm making money off of you every single time. Traffickers easily can make $1.5 million a year. Easily. So, how can you identify them? Remember we talked, so that guy up there, he's kind of dressed like what we would think a pimp might be dressed like. Again, we can't get distracted by that. They blend in. I think I've made that very clear. That is their goal. This is something you need to know. A trafficker is a predator who uses another human being for profit. They sell people. You are considered a product. It is a business. They don't see you as valuable. They don't see you as a human being. It is a business, okay? They make money by degrading and destroying another person's life, and you need to understand that boyfriends, according to a UN study, are considered to be the most prevalent type of trafficker. Again, they develop a relationship with you, and then they start to manipulate, which makes it really hard on the good, godly guys that are just trying to develop a nice relationship. Family members are number 2. All right, so there is no specific look to a trafficker. It can be anybody. It can be men, can be women, can be teens, can be anybody. It can be family members. So the same thing applies. There's no specific look to a trafficking victim. So if you're sitting here thinking, well, I just come from a good family and I'm in this protected neighborhood, it doesn't mean that you can't be trafficked if you get in the wrong relationship. So there's no look. It affects every race. It affects every age, and it affects every gender, both of them. All right. So why is it that we're not more familiar with trafficking? Why do you think? Before tonight, were you thinking that trafficking was mostly somebody getting kidnapped or somebody standing on the street corner, as a prostitute? Did you have any thought at all about what it might be? Never really thought about it? Okay. That's because that part that you see that we might think isn't anywhere near us, it's just these other people, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So it is happening at schools. It is happening at schools in Sussex County, for sure. It is happening in school. It's happening through social media. 88% of trafficking happens on the internet. So if you have a phone, you're on social media in any way, you are vulnerable just by being on there. I'm not telling you not to be on social media. I'm telling you need to know what to look for. You need to know what to stay away from, okay? Cell phones, websites, oh my goodness, yes. In-home, it can happen in homes. It can happen in your own home.
My kid at school sent a group text saying my friend would give a guy a $1 for $5 in the school bathroom. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want to be a snitch.
I don't know about you guys, but in most schools, most kids I talk to, snitch is a really bad word. It's a bad thing to be known as a snitch. Is it to you? To talk about something that somebody else is dealing with? It can get you hurt in a lot of schools, all right? But if you know somebody is being hurt, you know something happened, and you don't say anything, you basically are giving your permission for it to continue to happen. You have to speak up. If it is happening to you, I am encouraging you. I know it's hard to get the courage to bring it up. Talk to a parent, talk to somebody that you can trust. Get it out there, because it will not stop until it is brought out. It will not. No matter what your abuser is saying to you, it will not stop until you bring it out. That boy that you just saw, it was actually it was a story, actually, a child sex trafficking, exchange of sex and money, including somebody under age 18, okay? So it was a sex act. It wasn't actually sexual intercourse, all right? So looking the other way, again, doesn't help anyone. It just gives permission for it to keep going.
Hey, Mom. Did you know your boyfriend makes me have sex with him, and then pays me to make me feel guilty? I never asked for this. I don't want the abuse to continue. Hey, Mom. I need you to believe me.
That's trafficking. She was only 12 years old, okay, when this took place, and she had shame. She didn't tell her mom at first, and then she learned that was not supposed to be happening. She learned that was illegal, and then she got the courage to tell her mom. But it was after a few years that this had happened. This next story went on for 10 years.
Did you know our next door neighbor has been abusing me since I was 2 and has been selling nude images of me? He told me it was normal and okay. I thought he loved me. I didn't know any better.
So you might be thinking, well, why didn't he say something? First of all, he was 2 when it started, and his neighbor just basically groomed him. I love you. This is normal. He didn't know any different, okay? And he was having pictures taken of him and sold, and the parents never knew it, never even suspected it. It was the next door neighbor, and they didn't find out until the police actually saw some of the pictures that were taken, and they came to the door. Imagine that. Police showing up at your door telling your parents that I just saw nude pictures of your son and this is what's happening and your neighbor is the one doing this, okay? So this boy did nothing wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. When somebody's abusing, it's never the fault of the one that's being abused, okay? I need to be clear about that. If someone ever does anything to you, it's not your fault. If it's an older person doing something to you, that is their responsibility, that is their fault. That's not yours. You didn't do anything to deserve that. Next, knowledge check, okay? Go to number 2 there, knowledge check 2. Okay, what is the definition of child sex trafficking? What do you guys think? Read those over. Now remember, I'm not asking for an example, I'm asking for the definition. The simplified definition of child sex trafficking. Somebody else besides Harrison. Harrison has a little advantage here. Yeah. It is B, yes. B. When a minor takes part in any sex act where anything of commercial value is exchanged, there has to be an exchange there for it to be trafficking. Otherwise, it's just abuse, okay? Number 2, while all of the following can be traffickers, which is the most prevalent type of trafficker? Who do we say was number 1, besides Harrison? A boyfriend. That's right, okay? Boyfriend's number 1. So guys, you have your work cut out for you over there, boys. So you really do. So you have to be stand-up guys, right? Godly men. Learn how to be real men, because men that do this are not real men, okay? Learn how to treat a young lady the proper way, and I'm sure that they're working on that in youth group and at home. But because you're becoming more and more rare, really. And ladies, you have to be confident in who you are. You have to be confident in who you are, and not do something just because a boy wants you to. What percentage of sex trafficking happens on the internet? Do you remember what I said? Yeah, 88%. So that's the venue for most of it. Most of the apps that you're on, predators are already there. All the apps you're on. I'm not even going to say most. You're already there. We're going to talk about that next time. The internet is the next lesson. Okay? All right. My time is going. Let me. All right. So even though anyone can be a sex trafficking victim, there are some risk factors that make you go even higher. And that is if you're a runaway. So if you're struggling at home, you decide you're going to run away. I'm sick of it here. I can't stand it anymore. You run away, don't ever do it. If you're being abused at home, get help, but get it here. Don't go out on the street. Don't do it. There's no help out there for you. Find a trusted adult, all right? If you're just having a rough time at home, we can find something, call me, talk to Aaron, talk to somebody. But don't run away. Don't do that. That just skyrockets your chances. If you've been abused in the past, that skyrockets your chances as well. And the reason for that, let me explain that. It's not because something's wrong with you, all right? It's not because you need to be ashamed or you're dirty or anything like that. It's because if there has been prior abuse, then you have been groomed already, okay? Somebody has already been trying to convince you that that is all you're good for, okay? They're trying to convince you that you are not worth anything more than that. That's what you're made for, all right? And so if you've been abused, especially at a young age, it changes the brain. Doesn't make you stupid. That's not what I'm saying. But trauma changes the brain. We're going to talk a little bit about that next time again. But it will change the way you think about things. And so the cool thing is, God bless you, it can be reversed. That's the really cool thing. But it is a grooming process. And so if you've been groomed as a child and you come to the age of 12 or 13 and somebody approaches you and says, you know what, you're already doing this, you might as well make money at it. You're going to go, oh, okay. Maybe, okay, that makes sense. And so you get lured into it just a little easier than somebody else might have. So sexual abuse is definitely becoming an epidemic in our country. So before age 18, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 5 boys will be abused. 1 in 7 girls and 1 in 22 boys will be raped. Most youth do not report it because of shame. And you know how predators want to keep you trapped? They keep you trapped by the lies. And here are some of the lies. So if some of these things have come into your mind, even if you haven't been abused, but some of these things have come into your mind, let's recognize them right now as lies, okay? And lies come from the devil, all right? That's just true. So number 1, anything that happens like that and say it was your fault, that's a lie. Okay? Never your fault. If you tell, no one's going to believe you. That's a lie. So if you tell someone and the first person doesn't believe you, don't you give up. You go to somebody else and you talk to them, somebody you trust. No one will ever love you if they know the truth. If they know what you've been doing, they're never going to love you. That's a lie. First of all, God already loves you, okay? And there are a lot of people that love you. You're making a big deal out of something you should not, you should just get over it, okay? Man, just get over it. Come on. You're making a big deal out of nothing. So what? That was in the past. That's a lie, okay? You have to work through something. If you've been abused, you have to work through that. And the last one is you're worthless. That is a lie. God did not create you to be worthless. All right, so on your activity sheet there, okay, activity 6. No, where are we? Am I right? Yes, activity 6. So we have a lie. So I want you to replace that lie with the one that you think is the truth that would apply to that particular one. So the cool thing about me sitting here with you tonight is that we're here, this is a Christian atmosphere, and I can tell you that you have to, if you want to dispel lies, all right, from your mind, you can't just say, I'm going to take this lie out. You have to replace it with something. You have to replace it with the truth, okay? And I can tell you that the truth is Scripture. That I do know. It has to be replaced with what God says about you, all right? So what somebody else is saying about you is a lie, spit that out, and replace it with what God says about you. Go to the Word of God. All right, so we're not going to take time to go over this right here. I want you to actually, look at that. If we have time, we might come back to it, but I'm running out of time. But just recognize those as lies and realize that there is always a truth that can replace that. All right. The Bible tells us to cast down every, imagination, and we're supposed to be having our minds transformed. So we have to, anytime we have a thought that comes in our brain that's negative about us, we have to kick that out, okay? And sometimes that you have to do that like 20, 25, 100 times a day. It just depends what your situation is. You might have to do it, kick it out, kick it out, kick it out, replace it. What I do is I have scripture verses on my mirror, okay, at home. So I wake up and I read that first thing in the morning. Kick it out, okay, and I read truth. And so if you even memorize 1 or 2 Bible verses and you have to say the same one over and over and over again, it's still going to put truth in your brain, okay? You don't have to memorize 1,000 Bible verses. Memorize 1, what God said about you, and just keep telling yourself that over and over again. All right. You have to break the silence. You have to talk to an adult. It has to be somebody that you can trust. And it's not an easy thing to do. All right? But knowing, again, that the abuse will continue and you may end up choosing unhealthy relationships that will lead to even more abuse. All right? So if you don't speak about it, you don't deal with it, you don't come to a healthy place in it, you end up choosing the same cycle over and over and over again in your life. Mental health issues like depression, anxiety, self-harm, suicide, all things we will talk about later, are evidence of wounds and abuse. So if you know somebody that cuts themselves, there's reasons for that. They're not just weird, and they just felt like doing that someday. There's a reason why that's happening. People always have reasons why they act the way they do. Always. So, remember, you are, again, the author of your story. You and God, you work that out, right? And you have to know that there's always hope. And if this is not for you, it's going to be for you to relay to somebody else one day, okay? You can be. I have a girl that I work with, and we've talked about all this, and she told me the other day, she said, I was at school, and she goes, and one of my friends was struggling. She goes, and I was able to remember the stuff that you told me. And I told her all of it. And I told her, this guy that's probably texting you, you need to get away from him. So she starts talking to this other girl about everything that she learned, and that girl got out of that situation. So you can be somebody else's hope when they need it in a moment. All right, last knowledge check. Which of the following, this is knowledge check 3, which of the following increase vulnerability of being sex trafficked? So look at those answers. Which of those make you more vulnerable to be sex trafficked? Which do you think? Yeah. Would you, E? Yes, it is all of those. So, again, having been abused puts you at high risk. Being homeless, high risk. Being female, boys are trafficked. Okay, boys are trafficked. But being female makes you even higher risk. All right, you're even in more demand. And then being a runaway. Which of the following statements is true? Nobody will ever love you. You aren't good enough. Abuse is never your fault. None of them are true, or all of them are true? Which one of those is true? That's right. Abuse is never your fault. Okay? And the first step in stopping abuse is to break the silence and tell an adult, is that true or false? Is that your, yes, that is true. That's your first step. Okay? That is your first step. All right. So, you have your post questions there. They are the same exact questions that you had at the beginning. So I'm hoping that now you know the 3 answers. All right? Don't be talking about them saying, well, what is it? To your neighbor, okay? I just need to gauge what you know. All right? So look at those 3, answer them, and then I would love for you to turn your page over and fill the 3 out on the back. And then if you, or when you're finished, if you could bring me your whole packet, that would be awesome. And your name does not need to be on it. Okay? And while they're doing that, if anybody had any other questions, I can try and answer them for you. They might be things that might be answered in future presentations, but I'll let you know. So. I know it's a lot of information, and it's heavy, and you guys are probably ready to get up from these seats and do something different. But I do appreciate, it's important information. You really need to know this stuff.
One thing too, also, while you're doing this, if you think of questions, like during the week,
Yes.
just text me, and I'll remember them. I'll write them down for next time, and I'll make sure that I give them to her, and she can answer them
Yep.
whenever she has that space. Maybe it relates to something she's going to talk about or whatever too, but
Yeah.
just text it to me. It's easy.
And one of the things that we like to do when we go to places and do the youth presentation like this, we always offer and encourage the church or the organization to have an adult session. It will be different than this, but it's an awareness, okay? It's important that the adults know what's going on, really. Next time we get into the internet and the brain. So if you're finished, I'm fine with you coming right up here and putting your papers right there. I want to say thank you for listening. Thank you. And I'm hoping that you'll come back the next 2 times. This is Miss Julie here. She's one of our presenters as well. She's going to do the 3rd session for you. I'll be here, but she's going to actually present. Thank you, ma'am. Oh, goodness. This is that first one. Do you want that? Yeah. So real quick, can I just ask you, off the top of your heads, if you had to just say two main things that we talked about tonight, what would you say they are? Oh, thank you. Yep. Did we talk about the Olympics? So two main things that we talked about tonight, what would you say they are? And then you're free. But not until. Yeah, Megan, give me one. Right. Yep. One more thing. So when you go home and your parents are like, what was that presentation all about? What are you guys going to do? Sit there and look at them? Like what we say? You're going to go, I don't know. Sex trafficking. Right there, right there. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay. One more thing. Who predators are, we talked about that, Megan said. Nothing else? Yes. What? Okay, if you're being abused, it's not your fault. That's right. And speak up. Please, please, please. Okay. Thank you, guys.